All right, so
Where
you
we
about
at with it?
we're at Rakim and Tom Petty today, I believe is where
Yes,
we're at. Which
yes.
is going to be a lot of fun because this is one of those that I mean, I don't know a ton about. I mean, I know some about Tom Petty, but um, Rakim was the one that I knew the least about of the ones that we picked in this first like round or whatever. Um,
Hmm.
and it was also the one, for those of you, I guess we haven't announced this yet. We're doing I Ain't No Joke by Eric B. and Rakim, and I Won't Back Down by Tom Petty. And today, and like it was definitely the Rakim song was the one that I identified with least to start with
Hmm.
anyway. Like the first times I heard it, I mean it's older than many of the other ones we've done too, so it doesn't hit like right in the middle of high school or whatever, which is not quite the same. Um, but I also remember listening to you on According to Hip Hop saying that Rakim is either number one or two in your all-time greatest MCs. So, um, and I just wanted to ask you why. Like I accept and I have read about enough to know that he is legendary, but to hear like a little bit of an explanation why that is would be good. The place to start, I think.
Okay, so and so most people from my era who think Nas is the greatest MC of all time, and I am one of those people that
Right.
does feel that way about Nas. Most people from the previous generation feel that way about Rakim the way we do feel about Nas,
Mm-hmm.
and there's more maybe like viable evidence when we're getting into the nuances and fundamental things about this culture
Mm-hmm.
as to why people feel that way, and it's valid. I don't believe Nas exists without Rakim, for one, and most other people in this culture feel that way as well.
Okay.
He for me, and the best way that I explain this to people, Andrew, it's like, do you know the chart of evolution of man?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Like where they're starting
like
to
that
stand
we
up.
all, yeah,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
he's not. So I want you to understand he's a few parts of the chain because he didn't just stand up. He stand up and started running. So it was like he was Homo erectus and sapien at
Wow.
once. Yes.
So
So
he's a
that's who he
transition.
is. He is the transition. He is when the craft of MCing starts being taken seriously, and he is why. Before he comes along, the DJ, the graffiti artist, the b-boy is in the front. He made the craft of MCing come to the forefront.
Okay.
He's the main person responsible for that. Like KRS-One, Big Daddy Kane, Cool G Rap, Slick Rick, LL Cool J all belong in that category of, responsibility. But he's the guy of those guys. The reason that the craft of MCing is respected at the level that it is
Okay.
because of him. It starts with him on Paid in Full. And part of the reason why I started with I Ain't No Joke instead of one of his bigger singles off of Paid in Full is because I Ain't No Joke is actually how the album Paid in Full starts off. It's the tone setter for who he is as an MC. And if you
It's
hadn't heard the singles Eric B is President and My Melody in 1987 ish, it was,
mm-hmm.
then I Ain't No Joke was the first song you heard from this. You didn't hear the singles. And so it's important on that level for listeners who maybe didn't hear Eric B as President or My Melody as
Mm-hmm.
singles, which was very few people who didn't. I Ain't No Joke is the first song that you hear on Paid in Full. And so it's a tone setter type of song about what you're about to get from this MC.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody had ever really talked this way before. And we're going to get into some of the nuances of the things that he is actually saying
Mm-hmm.
that has never been said before. And as far as the craft of MCing is concerned, it's probably about 10 to 15 years ahead of the curve.
Wow.
Yeah. The way the guys are rapping, he's rapping like part of the main reason that they rap that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I mean that makes sense to me. Like that he is the bridge between, you know, Sugar Hill Gang or whatever and like
Yeah.
the Tupacs of and the Biggies of the world and
Right.
Nas and all of them. So he's the
So,
one who like moved them from just rhyming the ends
right.
of the lines to sticking stuff in the middle. Is that what?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. He's the guy that stuck the stuff in the middle. So let's go to a couple things. And
Yeah.
I love how you contextualize it, because here's how I look at it. He's the guy that ended Run DMC and Curtis Blow and Sugar Hill Gangs, all those styles of rapping. He's the one that ended that, and he's the one that inspired the Tupac, the Nas,
Okay.
the Big, the J. So he is that guy. And there are a lot of guys like that from his era, but he is the guy.
He's a singular one. Okay.
He's the one. It's like if we had to pick the guy from that era, that's the one. Shout out to KRS, but it would be Rakim.
Yeah. All of them are. I'm sitting here pretending that I know more than I do. I don't really know. Like I know from listening to you talk about it, like that they're important, but not like from personal experience. So I assume that in the future of this show that we will get into all of them individually. So I think they're all important to do that. So like, yeah, there's, I mean, you talk about the song particularly. What I love is the horn, man. Like that's the and I ain't no joke for a song that doesn't really have a hook, like it doesn't have like a chorus, like a traditional chorus, like it has like the punchline at the end, like the I ain't no joke, like it comes at the end basically of all the verses. But that to me, you know, coming from where I'm coming from, is the horn part kind of drives it forward. It gives it's not the point of the song, but it gives it forward momentum. The da 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 da, like that. And then he scratches it in there, or the DJ scratches it in there. But like,
no. So you brought up something very important about bringing the jazz part of this. Musicians write music, and so when you're talking about just da 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 and sticking it in the middle, that's because he understood the composition of music. He's one of the first MCs that actually came from a true musical background, knew how to play music himself. I think his grandmother is Ruth Brown, who's like a very famous and revered jazz musician. So he grew up in a jazz home. He grew up playing the horn. He actually played the horn, and he was a quarterback and an MC. He was actually about to go play college football before he recorded My Melody and Eric B. as president. So he's just somebody that's supremely gifted, period, too.
Wow. Yeah.
Like he was gifted in all things. He was a great quarterback. He was a great MC. He was a graffiti artist first. He was a dope graffiti artist. This guy is super, super intelligent and talented, okay?
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And so when he's saying I ain't no joke, here's another part of that. He's 17 years old when he's writing that rhyme. He's telling you, you need to take me seriously. No, he's 17 years old. Yes. He was graduating from high school. He was about to go play college football. He was 17 going on 18 years old when he's writing these rhymes. So it's very comparable to when Nas is writing Illmatic at 16, 17, 18. It's like, how is this guy writing this stuff at 16, 17, 18? He's somewhere else. We didn't see somebody go somewhere else until we hear Nas in 90. The most important part of the song for me about the historical context of it, just to go to the lyrics and we can jump back into what you have to say, Andrew. He says on the first verse, even if it's jazz or the quiet storm, I hook a beat up, convert it to a hip hop form.
Yep.
There you go.
That's what he's doing, right?
The style. Right. That's the explanation of the style and the man and the scheme. He's letting you know, he's like, no. I know about the slow music. I know about the jazz music, and I can take it and flip it into some rap stuff. I'm that guy. I ain't no joke.
And that gives me more context for what he's saying. Like, if you are listening to the song and you don't, or somebody that looks like me is listening to the song and doesn't have that context or some of that context, that this is a 17-year-old kid is proving to everybody that like what he has to say is worthwhile. I mean, you know how people are dismissive of teenagers. Like that's just like, and it's a cultural thing, regardless of who you are. I mean, it just happens. You can hear the song as arrogant a little bit. Like you can hear it as like, like, man, bleep all of y'all. Like, but he's not, from what you've just said anyway, he's not saying it like that. He's saying like, y'all need to pay attention to me.
Yeah, you need to listen up.
Because I do have the skill.
Yeah. That's exactly what he's saying. He's saying like, I got this skill and you need to check out my skills. It did start as an accident. The day that he went to the studio, he wasn't supposed to be the MC that was going to the studio. The other guy didn't show up or got locked up or something. So he ended up in the studio.
Oh, wow.
Now at the time, everybody's rapping tough and rapping hard.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that beginning and ending rhyme style that you're talking about with nothing in the middle.
Right.
So when he's coming to the studio with Marley Marl is Dr. Dre before Dr. Dre in hip-hop terms, to put it simply. He's the first all-time greatest producer hip-hop has ever seen. Okay?
Gotcha.
He's in the studio with Marley Marl and MC Shan. MC Shan is probably considered to be one of the 5 to 10 greatest MCs of all time at the time as well. They're listening to him, and they're like, yo, that's not going to work what this kid's doing. And so he has the greatest producer. Listen to this. He's 17 years old. He's still in high school. He's got the greatest rap producer of all time telling him it's not going to work. He's got one of the best rappers in the game right now telling him it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks at them and is like, nah, y'all don't know what y'all talking about. I want to do it like this.
Wow.
That's my melody. So when you go listen to my melody, he has a slow flow rhyme style, and he's even doing arithmetic on the track. Nobody had ever done that. They thought it was going to be a total dud. It changed everything. It changed the way we MC. It changed the way we look at the MC. And it's because he stuck to his conviction. He literally ignored the two most influential people in the game at the time and was like, nah, I got it. I'm on to something.
Wow.
Beautiful.
And that's
beautiful.
So we can replace that, the arrogant word, with confident, really. I mean, that's just
quiet confidence, quiet, steely confidence. 17 years old in the studio with the greatest producer of all time, and he's like, nah, I want to do it this way. That's confidence. That's not arrogance.
And he had the goods, and he had the goods to back it up too. I mean, that's the other part, right? Like the reason that we talk about him is not because he was confident enough to say that. The reason we talk about him is because he was right.
Yep. I'll say, are you playing Won't Back Down?
Yep.
Yeah, I love that record. It's still one of my favorites.
It's such a great song.
That might be good transition right quick. We can get back to the Rakim song in a second. You already started playing Back Down by Tom Petty.
No, I was just messing around because I figured we just cut it while you're getting your food anyway. So it's.
Yeah. All that. Okay, I'm back on.
All right. So yeah, do you want to get back onto Rakim, or do you want to do Tom Petty and come back around?
I mean, I'm flexible. I don't want to dedicate too much time to Rakim without getting Tom some proper burn, because Tom's pretty great. You know how I feel about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk briefly about I do think before we get into Tom, we do need to highlight like some of the examples of how Rakim's putting these lines together, because I know, like, we've talked about this before. I think probably I am nearer the top than in the top half, at least, of middle-aged white people that know about hip-hop. Like, and I was not super familiar with the song, so I'm guessing that most people listening to this that look more like me are not as familiar with how these lines are put together. I mean, I know they can grasp the idea that he was the one that moved them from DMC and Sugar Hill and all of them to Nas, Big, like that concept tracks, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's the first one I've seen that did, like, I can't quote the line exactly, but he says something like, "I'm gonna spark this microphone," because like at the very, very end.
I'm gonna spark this. Yeah. You see smoke when the heat is on. I'm no joke. He's talking about like setting a scene of what he's gonna do to the mic on stage. Yeah.
Yeah, but what he does is he breaks the line after spark this. Yeah. And
you're talking about the rhyme style. Yeah.
The way he's putting it together. Yeah. Like. Yeah. And so he's and in a poetry sense, of English teacher poetry sense of the word, like when you break a line like that, I mean the fancy English teacher term is enjambed lines, but you're breaking a line at a place that is not a natural break. Like the phrase is "spark this microphone," right? I mean that's the whole verb, subject, object. Like it's got all the parts together. But what it does is it gives you could be sparking something else too, right? I mean, like it could be a drug reference. It could be like he could be he's turning everything back on, like because he talks about killing the mic repeatedly throughout the song too, not just that's like one of the first couple lines, right? He's like smashing the mic. Isn't that? Am I remembering that correct? So
yes.
So
now,
like it's almost like he shut everything down and then he's like flipping it back on at the end.
It's one of our first like lyrical mic performances where the purpose of the song is to showcase his skill set and his skill level. You know, like there's a part of the song on the third verse, still one of the greatest. Like how far ahead he is. He said, "I'm gonna take you through a walk." He said, "I'm gonna take you for a walk through hell, freeze your dome, and watch your eyeballs swell." That's writer shit. You know?
Yeah.
He's in a place that other guys are just in. Like, so he's just ahead of his time. He ain't no joke. And that was one of those records that earned him that respect where as an MC everybody knew he wasn't to be played with. It's like no. There's only a couple of guys that even need to be mentioned with this guy. He set the tone really, really early.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. It resonates like Muhammad Ali. Like it's that kind of like, I'm going to tell you I'm going to kick your ass before I kick your ass, and I'm going to do it anyway. Like it's, or Larry Bird. I mean, like he is famous for doing that in basketball too. Like the people who like tell you what they're about to do to you, and then they do it anyway, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's that kind of thing.
I ain't no joke. I ain't no joke. Great reference. I ain't no joke is when Larry Bird showed up to the 3-point contest talking about who's taking second. That's what I ain't no joke is. It's the same thing. Yes. Like,
same
hold on,
idea.
who's taking second place today? Because like, you're not taking first place while I'm here.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely. That.
I hope enough of that got recorded. It cut some of what you set out, but I think we got enough in there. While we'll try. I've heard you this is a good transition too. I think like I've heard you say repeatedly that of like the classic rock artists that you like listening to, Tom Petty's pretty close to the top of the list.
Yes.
Like where does that come from?
I don't know. You want to know what? He's got what the kids would call drip. You know what I'm saying? He's got that. He's always had that. There's something about Tom Petty. He's got charisma. He's got swag. He's got drip. Whatever generation that you want to take it to, he has that. And he's talented as fuck as a musician, and I think underrated as a songwriter and composer.
Yeah, he is.
Is that an accurate assessment of him?
Yeah, that is an accurate assessment of him. Like, I mean, I knew about Tom Petty before, like, this moment in my, not this moment, but a moment I'm about to tell you about in my life. But I wasn't, like super knowledgeable about it. I mean, I knew all the songs that were playing on the radio at that particular time. This would have been, like, 99, 2000-ish, or had been playing. But one of the girls I dated in college was a huge Tom Petty fan. And that was one of the few positive things that I, took away from that relationship. We went to see her family one summer. We went from Asheville to Western Kentucky, so north of Nashville. And so we listened to Tom Petty and the Dixie Chicks, which we will also do an episode about some other time, but pretty nonstop the whole time. And it's like you were talking about in the last episode, the Stones, like being great riding music. This is really good car music. It's really good, like listening to as you go music too.
I think, hold on, can I say something right quick?
Yeah, of course.
I think Tom Petty, for me, is somebody that I feel like it's like, no, I can listen to him in the car and in the house because he's diverse enough and he's got enough soft melodies that it's house music too.
Yeah. He can do both. Like he's I don't want to like step on my own toes if we ever, I assume we'll do other episodes that involve Tom Petty songs at some point in our life. But Tom Petty has like essentially 3 major peaks of I mean, he has lots of great albums all the way through the 80s and 90s, but has 3 like major what most people would consider peaks. One is a record called "Damn the Torpedoes," which was 1979, which is um, um, his third album, but it was like the breakthrough one. And then the one that this record that we're about to talk about today, that I Won't Back Down, comes from, which is called Full Moon Fever, which is 1989, and that's also the one with two of his other like most instantly recognizable hits. We'll come to that in a second too. And then he did it is also his first solo album without the Heartbreakers. The Heartbreakers are his band, like the E Street Band is like with Bruce Springsteen. Like it's it's Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. So it's, and then his the other solo album that he did in 1994 called Wildflowers, which is much softer and more acoustically driven, most of it, which is a different story for a different day. That was the first one he did with Rick Rubin. So if you've watched like Rick Rubin do interviews about Tom Petty and producing, that's the record that he's talking about, is Wildflowers. Tom Petty is also, like we've talked about in previous episodes, in the school of songwriters with Dylan and Springsteen. He's like that kind of storytelling coming from like the country folk tradition way back, rock and roll tradition. His songs are, most of them melodically super simple. Most of them are like guitar chord progression, very simple. Not all of them, but many of them are super simple, and I Won't Back Down is one of those too. We've talked before about the 1-4-5-6 minor thing. Like this song Won't Back Down uses those four as well in a different order, but so it's instead of, he doesn't start with the root, he plays let's see if I can do this one with the guitar can hear it. It's just the minor first. Okay, so it's 6-5-1, and so it's, and the rhythm is I'm going to butcher the rhythm, but just the, and you can stand me up at the gates of hell, I won't back down.
Would you consider him to be a rock and roll minimalist?
Yeah, I would. I mean, not all of his songs are minimal, but I think of rock and roll minimalists, some of them being punk artists, but also artists who have songs that most people can play early on in their playing music career. Like Free Fallin' is probably the most famous song that he ever did, but also on this record. That was also on this record. That is like, I could teach my 13-year-old kid how to play this in 5 minutes, and she's never played the guitar before. That's just like, that's a D, and then add this finger, and then pull it off. That's all it is. It's that over and over.
Yeah.
And it's that for the verses and the chorus too, which is bizarre to think about, because the melody and whatever of the chorus and the verses are very, very different of that song. I don't want to dig too much in that. We probably will eventually talk about that in more depth on another one, but and this song also got, this song being I Won't Back Down, got a new life a couple times in its history too. It was released originally 1989, and it was the first single off that record. But it also reanimated itself. They used it as a 9/11 response anthem too. So it got played a lot at that particular point. And then Johnny Cash did a cover of it too, on one of his like really super old man albums, like the American something, I think it was the third one or maybe the fourth one. It was one of the ones where they did in like his 70s or 80s when he was had a very frail voice. And when you have this song, like "I Won't Back Down," you can stand me up at the gates of hell, but I won't back down, coming from a guy that is as iconic as that,
Johnny
who
Cash.
is
Yeah.
with his voice shaking. I mean, he's shaking because he's just older and whatever. But like it hits not differently, but it's a different vibe
No,
for sure.
no, yeah, the vibe is different, and he's iconic in a different way than Petty.
Yeah.
So yeah. No, I can see all those. So you spoke to something about how these chords that Petty's riffing off of on his biggest singles aren't that complex.
Mm.
So what's the number one draw you would say with Petty? Is it the songwriting? Is it the voice? Is he encompassing something as a rock star that people are gravitating towards? What's the gravitas?
I don't know. He is. I don't know. He's certainly like, his personality's cockier for sure than like a Springsteen kind of person. Like, I mean, he still has the everyman vibe a little bit, but he is, but like there's an undercurrent in his music that's not in Springsteen's that I know of, and not in a lot of others. That's, I mean, the songs sound poppier, like they sound catchier, like you can sing along to them. But there's an undercurrent of anger in his songs that isn't in a lot of others too, and it's not like smack you in the face, but it's but there's like a little little undercurrent there. I mean, one of the most famous stories about him is like in the mid 80s, he couldn't get a song to record like he wanted to, so he punched the wall in the recording studio and like crushed all the bones in his hand, and had to, and he had pins in his fingers. They've got doctors told him he'd never play guitar again. And this was in 1984, I think it was. Clearly, he did play guitar again, but there's that sense underlying a lot of this too. Like the "I Won't Back Down" songs of the world, like "No, screw you," and "Nobody's going to take this from me." Like this, there's a little of that in there too.
Right, he's doing more as a writer than those guys are.
Mm-hmm.
There's more nuance to his style. There is an undertone. There's a level, and then there's the undertone, and he does have more of an attitude. Yeah,
but he also,
at least to me, it seems like, not saying he has an attitude. I mean, has more of an attitude, like more maybe macho.
Yeah. And he doesn't look. I mean, he's probably the least macho looking rock star in the world. Like
Ever.
But he has that feel, like,
He does have a feel. Yeah.
and like the other part of it, obviously, we've talked about this with almost all of the artists that we've talked about so far, is that he has an instantly recognizable voice. Like you hear that voice, and that's Tom Petty. Like there's no question about it.
Yep.
So he has that going on as well. He's also
I think it might be the voice. I think it might be the.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the voice is definitely an important part of it. He also is coming more from the country rock side of things than Springsteen was. Springsteen's coming from more the folk-ish end, I guess, and you hear that, like in Springsteen's stuff is very New Jersey centric. Like you hear that coming through, like, because that's where he grew up and that's what he was familiar with. And Tom Petty was North Florida, Jacksonville, I think. I know North Florida for sure. So there's the country and the Florida crazy. Excuse me, Tom. I'm sorry, but like, I mean, there's both of those things going on that underlie that in a way that, and I think that's one of the reasons you see Tom Petty generally resonate more with people who grew up here, and Springsteen resonate more with people who grew up like New York, Jersey, like that kind of area. They're hitting kind of the same vibe, but the styles are based on where they grew up.
to the Tom Petty thing, can I tell you a quick story? You know how I first got acquainted with Tom Petty?
No, tell me.
So, same album, Rebel Without a Clue, right?
Mm. You're talking about Into the Great Wide Open, I think that's the song that has that line in it. Yeah, that's a little bit later, I think, but it's not this album, but it's close.
What's the album where he had Johnny Depp doing the video?
Let me look it up. I want to make sure I'm telling you correctly. Yes, Into the Great Wide Open is the one that you're thinking of.
To the Great Wide Open?
Yeah, Into the Great Wide Open is the song. Yeah.
So I can remember being a kid and hearing that record, which is the record that made me a fan and start digging off into him. And I was like, who's the cool old white guy that was able to get Johnny Depp to do the video? Because I used to like 21 Jump Street. Right. And so, you know, sometimes the buy-in about getting new audience, like whoever did that for him, like that was a great pull to get Johnny Depp in that video, because that pulled young generation, but also hip generation, because 21 Jump Street was multiracial and multicultural. They had Asian, Hispanic, blacks on there. Johnny Depp was obviously the biggest star, but we all watched. So that was like some very, very, very sly and keen marketing to get Johnny Depp to do that video. I remember Johnny Depp having the little black leather on and kicking the motorcycles over in the video. Yeah. And I was like, man, and this guy can sing. This song is dope.
Yeah. And I mean, he's telling, that's one of his better storytelling songs. Like that's like he's telling, and as he goes throughout his career, like later in his career, you have more songs of his that are like he's telling a narrative, and Into the Great Wide Open is one of those. It's just so the songs. I guess we need to do a little like pulling them together, too. That I think from what you've said and from what I understand, they both had Rakim. By they, I mean Rakim and Tom Petty. Have either presently, or Tom Petty is deceased now, but like have or had a had an edge to them, had and not in like a angry, violent way, but in a like you're not going to mess with me kind of way.
So yes. So that was one of the cool things really about Rakim, is that Rakim never really came off like a gangster, but he still came off like you couldn't play with him. You know? Like
and that's the vibe that I got from that song.
Yes, very intelligent, very articulate, not to be played with, not bang, bang, shoot 'em up, not to be played with.
Right.
Different ways to, 6 million ways to die,
Yeah.
So it's different ways to kill.
It definitely comes, and they both come off this way, like as like they're going to, I'm using this metaphorically, kill you with their lyricism, with their words, with whatever, not like by punching you in the face or whatever. It's not a physical violent kind of threat in either of these songs. And in fact, Tom Petty wrote I Won't Back Down actually after somebody broke into his house. So it was sort of not inspired by that. I guess it was responding to that. So it is, so both of them seem like they are not people to be trifled with, I guess.
Yeah. But it's like kind of like a quiet, steely confidence, like I was talking about earlier. It's not your these guys, they don't have your typical bravado for guys in their culture. They're not typical. They're both atypical guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
They do typical things that the greats around them do, but they're probably they're both atypical for like their class, weight class, and generation.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to me, that sounds like a good place to stop. I'm not trying to run everybody off, but like, but that seems like a good moment right there. Hey, y'all, I wanted to toss in an outro here. So make sure you like and share and subscribe and comment. That helps us with the YouTube algorithm. It helps us make sure more people get to see this. So if you think it's valuable, if you are down with what we're talking about or whatever, so if you do that for us, that'd be awesome. We appreciate you. See you next time.